Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I was speaking earlier about the amendments we have to this part, which are to delete the two sets of tests and why that is the case. And I was talking about how in the Green Party we believe that the Māori should have the right to go to court, restored in full, not this Clayton's version that's set out in this legislation, but restored the right to go to court in full, to have the court determine what the tests are for how to meet a customary title, to prove that they have customary title, and that is then the position for the courts to work out what that customary title might mean. And the reason why we think that the court is in a better position to do this is because the court does not have the political and economic interests in setting the bar high that governments do. And when I say governments, I mean both government as opposed to the national or the Labour government, since both exercise their choices to set the bar too high for Māori to be able to prove whether or not they had customary title. And the reason why the courts would have, notwithstanding that courts don't do everything perfectly, they don't have the same political and economic interest in the outcome. And they do have greater flexibility in the different ideas around the tests that they could use. In the first 2004 version, there was the continuous ownership of continuous title. I can't even remember how that language worked, but there was basically a requirement that you had to own the land that sat alongside the coastal marine, the foreshore and seabed area, and that would enable you to prove. Now, of course, that was practically impossible for practically everywhere because the colonisation process has been such in this country that land has been taken from practically every Māori, iwi and hapu whānau in the country, and that land was taken by force, it was taken unlawfully, it was taken in accordance with promises that were never met, and yet that would still be sufficient to extinguish their customary title under the 2004 legislation. Now, the 2010 legislation doesn't have quite that same test, but it does require that you have exercised your customary rights or your rights as exclusive use and occupation that's been substantially uninterrupted, and that is an impossible test. In a colonised country where the vast majority of what was Māori-owned land has been taken by the Crown, by government, there is no way that iwi can legitimately meet a test of exclusive use and occupation that has been substantially uninterrupted since 1840. It simply does not exist. It does not exist in the way that it's been set out in this bill. So the bar has been set too high by the National Government and by the Māori Party. I don't know why the Māori Party would set a test so high that by far and away iwi and hapu would not be able to meet it. I don't know why the Māori Party would decide that that was okay, that to have a test that hard in what the Māori Party readily understands as a colonised country where most of that land has been gone and taken. So not only have we a proposal, an amendment to remove the tests from the legislation, if that is not what the House is wanting to do, we do have an additional amendment to alter the tests in clause 61, that the Minister, particularly an amendment to the SOP of the Minister on clause 61. And what it means is that our amendment will mean that for a customary marine title, that it won't be extinguished or considered to be extinguished if somebody has been using it for access and recreation, if somebody has been using it and placed a structure on that land or placed some other thing on that land. And it won't have been extinguished if someone has used it unlawfully or for an unauthorised occupation, or whether someone in the exercise of that unlawful, unauthorised occupation has then placed a thing or a structure or a building on that land. And this is just opening up more space for iwi, for whānau hapu to be able to meet the test, because it means that if that area has been used as a recreational area or an access way by some people without without recourse at all to the iwi and hapu who are claiming the customary title, that's not enough. Mr Chair, Mr Chair, Mr Chair, Mr Chair, Mr Chair.